I had a corporate role in Nokia where I was leading one of their server development teams and a couple of roles in Amazon, launching various products. I love to code. I still love to code. I'm looking at tech achievements being totally aligned with the business outcomes in the end. That you put tech at the center of the business, and that ends up being your largest risk component.
How can other CTOs replicate a playbook from you?
Yeah, I'll probably write a book on that. But
Hi, today we have Saurabh Mittal, CTO of Piramal Finance with us. Welcome to the talk, Saurabh. Saurabh was the founding CTO of MedLife. He has also worked with Amazon twice, once as Jungli. He has done a bunch of startups. Saurabh, to start with, I do want to ask you about your professional journey, right from your college, first jobs. You've done a bunch of startups.
yeah.
Tell me about that first.
Yeah, that'll be a long answer, but let me first start with just thanking you. G, thanks for having me here, and the Scalar team as well. It's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to saying something that makes sense to your viewers ultimately. My journey. So, grew up in a small town. I grew up in Patna, and the aspiration at that time was to just go to IIT and hope to have a great life after that. The usual dream about get to IIT and then go abroad, make your money. That is what was sold to me. But when I did get to IIT Bombay, and one of the early conversations we were having with our head of department, Professor Narayanan at that time, and I in my first few days, I went to him in that counseling session and asked him, "Sir, I want to go abroad after completing my course. What should I do today?" And he gave me a piece of his mind. Like, dude, you're just here. You don't know what you want in life, and all you want to do is to leave India. I said, okay. That makes a bit of sense. And I think that was a bit of a transformative conversation in the sense that I did make up the choice to not go abroad after that, and instead to be in India and build in India. And that's sort of shaped my career since then, the aspirations to build. So I did not take up the campus job that I had and chose to go into the startup world. First 7 years, that was the first leg. So broadly, I would categorize my journey so far into like 3 large startup phases, interspersed with corporate roles in Amazon and Nokia. So the first startup role, just after IIT, the thought at that time was, can I really build a commercial scale product? And then you do it, you figure out, yes, you can build. Then can I really sell? Do customers pay for it? Can you actually get some money after building that? And then once you've done that, you say, okay, now can I scale this? So the first leg of my startup was a whole lot about building, a whole lot about selling, but I didn't see like great scale in those. The products themselves scaled, but the companies did not. So that first leg was about, let's say, $0 to $1 million in revenue as a net achievement. The second large phase was when I was the founding CTO of MedLife. They're again building the setup from scratch. That was a 0 to like $100 million GMV in 4 years time. And then the third startup, Piramal Finance, not many people know it, but this was also a startup. When I joined there was practically zero AUM. Yeah. AUM is assets under management. It's the gross value of loans that we have given and are outstanding. It was practically zero when I joined. And so from there to 65,000-70,000 odd crores that we have achieved in the last 4.5 years, that's a few $1 billion of AUM now.
Very cool.
In 4.5 years. So this has been like of course the largest success story for me so far. So these have been the large startup phases, and in between, I did I had a corporate role in Nokia where I was leading one of their server development teams and a couple of roles in Amazon. Launching various products. The corporate roles gave me a completely different type of exposure. In addition to building stuff, in addition to launching stuff, having the global exposure, working across teams in multiple geographies, understanding the nuances of deep collaboration, learning all of that. Those have been pretty rewarding as well.
So you said you've also done. You said I built and I sold. Tell me about that a bit more. As founders, you're like really the sales VP of sales for the startup.
Yeah, and that was a bit of hard realization, So just after campus, I thought I love to code. I still love to code. Uh, that was the time when I was definitely quite clear that I wanted to spend the rest of my life just writing code. And then you realize you're in the startup world and coding is not enough. So, somebody has to pay for your software. And so naturally, people in the group who are better at, let's say, communication end up being the face of the company and talking to customers and trying to do sales conversations and all that. So when you're a bootstrap startup as we were, this was 2002-3 timeframe when the ecosystem was not as great as it has been in the last decade or so. Raising funds was not easy. Most of the startups were bootstrapped.
Yes.
So we didn't really have a whole lot of money. And so crazy things happened, So we listed like 20 products on our website and we started talking to customers as if the products were ready. We started, of course, building the foundations. But then what we're trying to really do is gauge the interest. Where is latent interest for the kind of products that we think can sell. And when you're talking to so many customers and you suddenly get like interest, a little bit of interest for one product from a few, then okay, this one is likely to sell. And then okay, let's start going deeper. Let's start building this. Let's figure out what does it take to have a contract with the customer. And so that's how prospect the customer, opportunity, build in parallel. Obviously, you're taking a risk. You don't know whether it'll sell or not. But some of those clicked in the end, and some of those clicked in. And ended up being large deployments for us.
Yeah. I remember the number being 21, but
okay, you've got good memory.
How does that sales experience and founder experience translate to your day-to-day life in Piramal Finance today?
So let's say that you're always selling in some or the other way in your life, right? So as a CTO here, and this is a large enterprise now. There are many stakeholders, and there's many levels where people need to know what you're doing and does it really make sense for the business, and is it going to create value and all or not. The ability to put together a strategy in the form of a story that people can understand, can connect to, can be sure that it is value accretive. That's one part where it's definitely helped bring in alignment from the larger enterprise. And the other is hiring, so building teams, imagine, so Piramal, for example, did not have a name in the tech world when we started 4.5 years back. Nobody knew Piramal. I mean, today we are quite a name in the campuses. People know us relatively, it's still a long way to go, but relatively we are much better off compared to where we were 4 years back. So I'm talking to somebody who looks like a great engineer to have on the team, and these were COVID times, and so they have like 20 offers. Why should I join you? And so explaining the story to them and getting them on board, that's also where I thought that my ability to sell a little bit helped. So of course I've been quite clear about never mis-selling. Because people who come in with incorrect expectations end up leaving then in a few months, and that's unnecessarily disturbing for both the candidate and us. So selling in a good way, not in a salu way, but in a way which is actually the real story, the real vision, and being able to communicate that and help the other person connect to that. That I think helped us build teams as well. So those are the two parts where I think selling really helped. And that overall confidence that yes, that if there is a day you want to again, go and raise your own funds and you need to talk to investors and sell to real customers again yourself, the early stage startup experience is there with you. You can do that anytime. The things about rejection, the first few phone calls that I had made, I remember in those very early days, and customers would either say outright no, or they were just very rude. Or you would go to their office and they would make you wait like 4 hours just over there and meet you for 2 minutes. Those were like terrible feelings. But then those are what make you in the end. You end up becoming stronger because of those experiences, and you develop the confidence that yes, in the end, the sale does happen, the deal does go through, and you do get to pursue your passion.
And maybe you also get to use Google Translate better, and instead of writing Dear XYZ, you end up writing Darling XYZ.
Oh yeah, that story. Yes, yes, this can happen when you're selling internationally, and Google Translate was not there in those days. There was some other translation tool that we were using, uh, and there were these weird mistakes we would make when selling to non-English speaking customers.
Oh, let me. So last year we met around the same time. You showed me an agentic as a word was taking off, but there was no Claude Code, or I don't remember, even Cursor was just probably breaking out that time.
Yeah,
And you showed me this demo of decently well structured story in your Jira board that you moved to a certain state and your agents took over, and after some time, there were a PR with screenshots of what was
yeah,
built as there. That
yeah,
is amazing. That is production code.
yeah,
Where are we in
absolutely.
your AI journey today in Piramal?
Yeah.
For me, you were like way ahead of all of my friends at that time.
No, that would not be real. But we have had we're a bit lucky that way. And in this company, our CEO has been very supportive of the AI initiatives, and so not just providing the required funding, but also constantly nudging us to be aware of what's happening in the world and to keep pace. And so we've had our room to experiment and learn and grow. So we are roughly in our third avatar, I would say, of using AI in the software development space. The first one was where we started with co-pilot type stuff. You're writing, and like your emails get auto-composed, so your code can get auto-composed. You give a method name which has English words in it, and Copilot can sort of figure out what the logic should be. That was a great starting point, and engineers started loving it, and they started demanding more. And that's around the time Anthropic came. So we went into our second avatar, and we realized that there's a whole lot of code that can now be generated with AI. And now we are in our third avatar, where we're trying to say that can there be an agent that can take just a Jira story and write the whole code and push things through to production? And that's where I would say that that we are still learning. So the stuff that we are quite clear about is there's the low complexity stuff where there is no historical context to be given. So let's say you're building you built a product over time. Like we have something called Shakti internally. Now Shakti is obviously a name given to a product, and so a Jira story would say, in Shakti journey make this change. You give that to an agent, and agent has no context of what Shakti is. It can't figure that out. So how do you give the right context? But given the right context, especially for greenfield type stuff, we've found that agents have been quite good. And so like a good chunk of our code is today generated by agents. But then we understood one more thing, that instead of taking this larger goal of given any story, let the agent write the whole code, there is a bunch of like small areas which are massively value adding. For example, you've got tons of these on-call alerts coming in every day, and there's like fatigue for the on-calls in dealing with those. And so somebody just wrote this little bit of an agent that does first level debugging. That agent has access to all kinds of logs, of course the alerts, can access the databases, query them, and being able to categorize, that this one looks like a false alert, or this one looks like a true one but low severity, and this is the real one that needs attention. Or let's say that there are some low complexity fixes that need to be done. So somebody creates a production issue, and so the ability for an agent to say, okay, this is the exception log, and so from that exception log figure out that this is where the code needs to change, and go and make that change and push it through. That's another example. There's all kinds of like test case writing, scenario simulation and all that agents can do. So what we're seeing is that instead of the big goal of, give a story to AI and it needs to do everything and that's like magic, there's a bunch of these smaller areas within software development where agents are contributing a lot. And that has been like a big productivity unlock for our teams.
A lot of grunt work can definitely
lots of grunt work, lots and lots of grunt work. The thought now is about also that Shakti example that we gave. So for the new stuff that I'm building today, what should be done in addition to whatever we've done historically, so that the AI agent of tomorrow doesn't have the same lack of context that the agent of today has,
Yeah.
right? And if you can nail that sharply, then I think agents can do more and more work over time. We are also realizing that in the world of software development, there's there's testing. The way you do testing is going through massive changes. Deterministic testing is of course not possible, and so getting QA guys to say that you're now going to do statistical testing. You're no longer certifying code to be working 100% of the time, but you're going to certify it to be working well enough, 99% of the time. And so, the upskilling that is required over there, the thinking, the change in mental models that have to be done for people who are doing QA and people who are doing UAT and those who are doing production monitoring, those are all like new skills that have to be developed, new skills and new frameworks, new set of metrics that have to be developed to really assess the QA quality. But yes, it's been a fun ride. I think so far there's good amount of success, and we are we continue to be on the side where we believe that AI is already giving us productivity unlocks and can continue to be a big driver of productivity in the future as well.
Earlier, you said Piramal Finance was a startup when you joined, or startup-like, or at least early in the journey. How did you make that move from, you were at Amazon when you made the move? This is a big shift in, you moved to fintech, completely new world. How did you decide, hey, this move makes sense and this is a good bet?
Yeah, great question. Like, being in a place like Amazon, and for people who like to build, it's a great place, right? And so gives you all the space, freedom that you need to build things, to come up with new ideas yourself and to pursue whatever you would like to pursue. So when the Piramal Finance opportunity came up, it was a bit of a non-trivial decision for me. Uh, but then again, the career story has been about building things from scratch. That very strong itch has always been there. That we need to build things from scratch and make them large, like really large. So like I explained, my first one was about 0 to a million, and second one was, let's say, up to 100 million. I was looking for what might be a $1 billion like potential to create an impact for myself, and I realized that here's a real possibility. And unlike traditional startups, no, I shouldn't use the word traditional startups, but let's say unlike many startups, which carry with them a financial risk, that you get to build stuff, but you don't know whether you will survive a year or two down the line. This looked like a place where we wanted to build. The opportunity to build was there, and yet had the backup of a large enterprise. And so, it came with the financial stability. So that was a big thing, for me. And I think that influenced many of the senior people who joined after me as well. That they thought that there's a great opportunity to create impact without taking undue like financial risks for the self. And that vision of Piramal Finance was something that we really connected with. So tier 2 and 3 towns, people don't find it easy to get their homes financed from banks. Okay. There's a large segment that banks just don't serve. And so, how do you build the required tech which allows you to take funding decisions on that segment of customers, which may not be very data rich, which of course, the banks are not serving, and being able to do all of that at scale. You're not talking of like 1 or 2 customers being funded like that, but you're talking of, millions of customers being funded like that. So that problem statement itself, was a very interesting statement. It felt like if solved, it could help impact positively the lives of, again, like so many people. A house is still the largest investment that so many people make. And so if you could facilitate that, through this business, it would be a great thing to do. So that's what, ultimately, led us to join
What
here.
percentages of your customers are underbanked or unbanked today, like you said?
So let's say underserved by the bank, the segment that the banks would typically not want to serve, it's pretty much all of them, so, and that's evident in the interest rates. So a home loan interest rate, let's say for salaried customers like ourselves living in big cities, would be today in the 8% range, let's say, plus minus few. Ours is, let's say, 12% plus. So if banks were going after those customers would obviously take the loans from the banks. They wouldn't take it from us. So I would say that pretty much all the customers we serve are not being served by the banks as far as the loan requirements are concerned.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And it's not just velocity. You can make your decisions faster. That's not the USP.
So within the lending business, there'll be let's say the digital first products, and there'll be the products which are still sold via the branches. So we've got 500 plus branches across the country, and we've got a large team that operates out of the branches acquiring customers. So the digital businesses, there the velocity of decision taking, the accuracy of decision taking is much more important. The branch led businesses, it's okay if that's a little slower, but the quality of decisions you take over there becomes much more important. So we acquire like 90% of our customers via the digital channels, but 90% of our AUM comes from the customers we acquire via the branches. Which means the customers coming via the branches are taking larger ticket size loans from us, and therefore are contributing a much larger part of the AUM. Yeah.
All right, cool. What does your day look like at Piramal Finance, and how is it different from Midlife? I remember you were also doing some marketing functions at Midlife.
Another startup story. You end up doing like a bunch of things. Yeah, there's always different things we are trying to balance, but I discovered a phrase for that, in one of the training sessions. It's called ambidextrous leadership, the ability to balance different types of behaviors. So thinking of short-term versus long-term, thinking of, should I just launch or, look at efficiency? Or today, if I have to spend my time, should I spend my time building new things or fixing what's broken? And so there are always these either-or situations that you run into. And ambidextrous leadership says that you've got to keep balancing these. So very roughly, like not really on a day-to-day basis, but on a longer period, let's say week to month, to quarter, 20-25% of my time is going into the strategy stuff, and the rest is going into execution. And within execution, you would say, so let's say 80% is execution. Or out of that 80, 20 is all the people management stuff, hiring, developing people. Another 20% is all the stakeholder management stuff, the people that you work with, co-creating things with them, and managing those relationships. And the remaining 40 is what I love doing the most, which is actually creating products. So being able to get involved in defining, firstly, what should be the composition of a product, the corresponding user experience, the corresponding software design. My team doesn't let me do code reviews, but yeah, design reviews, UX reviews, and product reviews, for sure. That's what I love to, spend the most of my time on. So, 40% of my time overall goes into doing that. So the difference compared to the smaller startup, MedLife, is that, by the nature of that startup, there's only a few of us, at the top. There were just 3 CXOs over there, pretty much running day-to-day operations, and so we could take quick decisions. We could huddle up. We could take quick decisions. Versus here, it is a much larger setup, and so many more people, their points of views, needs to be taken into account. What that means is that often our quality of decisions is much better because there's more points of view. Sometimes you feel that you're being constrained on speed of execution and all that, but then in the end, I feel good about it because more people contributing, more points of views just leads to a higher quality decision, and therefore better products and better chance of success in the end.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny to see MedLife being called a small startup.
It was, in the context of I'm right now, let's say, and many other startups for that matter.
What were your top 2 achievements, tech achievements in Piramal Finance and MedLife?
So let me say top 1 in both of these, which are common. So when you have a business to launch, right? So let's say in MedLife, you have, CEO comes and says that let's launch a home delivery of medicines business. So translating that into, a process flow, translating that into, okay, these are the products that need to be built, either built or bought and deployed, and this is how things will flow. So defining that and then giving shape to that such that the business comes to life, right? and then you start realizing the revenue streams, and then scale one step at a time. One step at a time. You say, okay, you've got basic flows running. This one now needs to go from A to B. This part looks like this needs more investment. So one by one, figuring that out and scaling those. So I'm looking at tech achievements being totally aligned with the business outcomes in the end. That there were certain business goals that we wanted to accomplish, and like it may be very trivial to some people, but actually it's not. You put tech at the center of the business, and that ends up being your largest risk component. You suddenly have a game plan to scale your business 10x, and you realize your tech is struggling, and you can't deliver those outcomes. So I feel my biggest achievement has been in both of these businesses that we've never ever had those constraints. We've been able to take timely action, so that business could scale to whatever numbers it wanted. And that's, I think, for me, the single largest feeling of achievement.
I want to ask you about the scaling of tech at Piramal Finance. But even before that, I just ordered some medicines from one of the quick commerce apps. And I was like, hey, how do you feel about it? I remember you launched Midlife with a 2-hour delivery goal. And you're trying to figure out logistics and whatnot. How do you see these quick commerce delivery apps, and what have they done differently? Which maybe, at that point, you're trying to solve the same problem.
Yeah. So see, most of the quick commerce apps, as far as medicines are concerned, my understanding, I haven't probably done enough deep analysis, is they're going after the OTC segment, the ones that doesn't require a prescription. And what we were going after was a segment of customers where prescriptions were needed. And these are learning. So when we started the business, the promise was that you go see a doctor. By the time you reach home, your medicines would have reached as well. So great starting point. But then as life happens, you learn things along the way. You realize that customers who are in immediate need of medicines, maybe somebody has a fever or a rough throat, they will buy from the pharmacy just outside the doctor's. They're not going to wait for the medicines to come home. They'll buy right there. But then there are people who are having chronic problems like hypertension and diabetes and stuff like that. They are doing planned purchases of medicines. And so for them, the ability to get the medicines delivered at a fixed time, on a fixed date, that is every month, once a month, so more like subscription-like capabilities, we realized that was the real market, versus small 50-70 rupee SKU item. The chronic ones were higher average order values, and therefore were having better unit economics. So we learned that, and we pivoted towards that. Now the ones who are doing OTC, I don't know about the unit economics, but if they figure out that for 60-70 rupee SKU items, how can you give discounts as well as incur the cost of deliveries and yet be profitable, they're doing a good job. And there's enough feeling of respect for these startup founders who crack these things in life. So if you figure this out profitably, it's an amazing thing.
We'll get back to the Piramal tech scale part, which you mentioned earlier, that hey, Piramal was not known for its tech. So there is, let me say, establishing yourself as a tech company where an engineer would like to, an engineer can build a career. And second is scaling it enough with the business, because the business itself has grown manyfold and you have done acquisitions and whatnot. So how have you scaled tech? And literally the question that really I want to ask is, how can other CTOs replicate a playbook from you?
Yeah, I'll probably write a book on that. but let's say quick answers if you're looking at. So let's bucketize this, right? So there is the tech itself, which is, are you on the cloud? Is your design such that it can scale with the needs of the business? Are you you've studied data structures, algorithms, you've interviewed people on those, but are you really applying those? So I'm assuming that that's the stuff that is sort of taken care of, and people know that that helps scale. Along with that, choosing the right databases where you don't have to worry about scaling. So let's say that's the obvious part, and people will take care of that. The few not so obvious parts, let me cover that. Um, so this thing about how much, so scaling tech is let's say about how much can you continue to build on top of the foundations that you laid initially. So we all know that when you build stuff, it requires a bit of maintenance going forward. Uh, so let's say a typical software that you buy it for 100 rupees, and the vendor will say that every year you have to pay 20 rupees as maintenance fee. So if you have 100 rupees, next year you can spend like 80 rupees buying the next one, and following year you can spend even less and less. So if you build software in a manner where your operating cost, the cost to maintain that software, is high, then you are setting yourself up for scale failure. You will not be able to build enough as the business grows, and one day you will hit dead ends. So I talk about this metric called BTOR, BTOR, build to operate ratio. So let's say you had 100 units of time, and in your first year you have nothing to operate, so you've spent all that time building. In the second year, when you have the 100 units of time again, are you able to spend most of that 100 building again? Or are you spending most of that 100 operating whatever you had built in the past? So great teams, what they will do is they'll keep their BTOR ratio very, very, very high. Like, if I've spent 100 units of time building in the first year, my cost to operate that should be like 1 or below, not in the 20 range, but let's say 1, or even better, 0.1 or below. And if you do that over and over again, you can build and scale for many, many more years than otherwise. So what does it take to do that, to keep your BTOR very high? So again, in startups, you're always in the rush for launching. I have an outcome to deliver. I just need to launch. And so many engineers interpret that to mean that, I have to keep taking shortcuts, and I have to keep accumulating like an undocumented amount of technical debt just to take care of outcomes today. Tomorrow is somebody else's problem, right? Many engineers operate with that state of mind. And they're not necessarily doing the wrong thing, but the additional mental model I give them is, think about it like you have to cross a road, right? Somebody tells you have to cross a road. You don't go there and just start running because you have to cross the road. You take a bit of pause, you look, and then you cross. And it's only a bit of pause, right? It's not you don't wait there for hours saying, when the traffic fully clears up, only then I'll cross. But you take a bit of pause, and then you minimize your risk, and then you go forward. So keeping BTOR high is a whole lot about that. Before you start to rush, before you start to cross the road, can you take a little bit of a pause? Just a little bit of a pause to say, okay, this is my design. These are the choices I'm making. Let me put a little bit of document on that. Let me talk to a peer, get it peer reviewed, and make sure that I'm taking the best path forward, as opposed to just blindly rushing. And the push that I've made to the team, and many of them have agreed in the end, is that pause is only a little bit. It's it's not like days and weeks and months and years. It's only a little bit. In most cases, it's just like an hour or so. An hour of a pause can help you make better decisions, such that what you're building today can run tomorrow without needing a whole lot of operating bandwidth. That allows you to build more in the future. That allows you to have better life in the future. It's your system. You will end up maintaining it, and if you end up building it in a manner where most of your time is going to on-call, then where will your job satisfaction come from? And when this angle comes in, that it's ultimately about your job satisfaction as well, then people start getting it.
That's a salesperson in you.
No, there's genuine love for people, so give them a good, help them see the good life. So in agile teams, let's say you have a 10-member team. So they build first year. In the second year, if they have 1 on call, so your BTOR is, let's say, 9-1, right? So that's your ratio. But in the third year, if you end up having 3 on calls, then you're worsening. They're not really scaling. So this angle of scaling, where how you build how you build impacts how much you can build in the subsequent years, and therefore how much you can scale. This is not very obvious to people. So this is one additional dimension that I sort of keep in mind. And then the third thing, of course, is about, as you scale, then, the team part. It's one thing to get stuff done with 10 people teams, 30 people teams. But then as you grow beyond that, 50 and 100 and 200 and 300 and all that, there's like all kinds of challenges that come in terms of quality of talent, in terms of their ability to interwork with each other, in terms of the ability to still hold together, a set of cultural principles that are important. So, gating the hiring, once people come in, then giving them a structure so that they can see how they're performing, what is important over here, having the clear culture tenets, communication, repeated communication around culture tenets. These are all deep topics, and if you have more questions, specific questions on these, we can go deeper into these. But broadly, the scaling of teams is again a non-trivial point. Operating a 10-member, 30-member team is very different from operating a 100, 200, or 300-member engineering org.
I want to quickly ask you about your build to buy philosophy and how BTOR affects build or buy.
If there's a ready product out there which caters to my needs, is affordable today and tomorrow. So there are systems, for example, which increase in cost linearly as your business grows. So those are not necessarily affordable tomorrow. Something that may look very small today, your business is going to grow, but if the cost grows linearly or much more than the increase in business, then that's a unaffordable one. So does it take care of my needs, functional needs? Does it, is it cost affordable today and tomorrow, not just today? And are there constraints which might become like large constraints for me over time? For example, not having access to the source code, could it mean that there are security issues that we may not be able to fix? Not having control over the architecture, does it mean that eventually there'll be scale constraints? How much traffic can it really handle? So being able to understand those constraints and then make the choices whether a build one is good enough for us or not. So that's usually the philosophy. But if there is something that's ready to be bought, you buy it. Be aware of the constraints. If you're not getting something like that, then you build. And here again, I have to say that businesses, when we build, right, there will be times when we are unsure about the success of the business. There will be times when we are experimenting. So there, the thinking doesn't have to be what's the best long-term decision, but today's decision is good enough, because you're trying to quickly learn whether customers will accept your offering or not. But when you're building for the long term, like Piramal Finance, we knew we were building for the long term. We knew we were building this for like 25 years type time frame. So that suddenly changes. When you're saying I'm building something for 25 years, then you don't lose much if you spend a year building the right systems. They give you all the source code that you need, all the flexibility that you need, all the cost optimization that you need for that 25-year period. So that's the net thing. Wherever you think you can create value, wherever you think you don't want to have hidden constraints, wherever you don't want hidden cost constraints, there you build. Otherwise, if there's already stuff out there which allows you to experiment quickly, go buy. There's nothing wrong about it. Yeah.
This building for future and building for 25 years, maybe more, in Piramal's case. What's the big bet or biggest bets, tech bets that you're taking right now?
So these would be, let's say, in the horizon 2 to 3 time frame. Horizon 1 still is about, the here and now. There are numbers we have promised to the markets on how much we'll grow and how much profitability we'll deliver, and a lot of focus is on that. But horizon 2 to 3, we're betting a lot on agentic AI. So there's a lot of talk about what agents can do and cannot do. We have narrowed down onto a class of AI agents that we're calling YY agents, WYWA. So while you were away, so there's a job function, and you say that, when you're not at your job, this agent can do the work that you would have done, provided you gave the authority to this function, to this agent to do your job. So, a software engineer is on call, but at night is not available, wants to have a good sleep, the agent can take care of a whole lot of the on-call functionality. If there's something critical, it can still raise an alarm for the real human. A telesales call, so a telesales human agent can do only so many number of calls, but can the human agent give agency to an AI agent, almost like a twin of that? So not one superstar AI agent, but a twin of the human. And so many of these twins exist then. They've been given agency by the human, and the twin can now make many, many more calls in the same time than the human would have. And therefore, convert much more, while the incentives, the sales incentives from those still go back to the human. So think about that in the customer service world, the software development world, in the IT support world, in the production support world, in hiring. We're seeing amazing applications in hiring. Engineers. If I had this 4.5 years back, it would have helped so much. Hiring engineers was so much constrained by our own interviewing bandwidth. There's only so many people we can interview. Whether it's coding interview, behavioral interview, AI can do that for us now. So an AI agent whom I've empowered to do interviewing while I'm away, it does the interview, takes the decisions, and still plays back whatever it did with me. So we're making a bet that these agents can enable hypergrowth for the company without, of course, compromising any of the checks and balances that need to be in place in a lending business, in a regulated lending business. So all of that taken together, how can we have agents do a whole lot of work that humans were doing across the whole company? This is not just within software development, but literally all the functions in the company. So in about Horizon 2 to 3, we expect that agents will be significantly augmenting the humans by doing their work, and therefore the productivity gains that we would get over there would not be of the order of 20-30% type magnitude, but more like 1,000% type magnitude. So that's what is a bet right now. I have to admit though that the pace at which things are changing in the AI world, there's always caution. You don't know, something might change tomorrow, and all of this might start looking like a stupid fantasy. So we just have to keep watching out for that. Yeah.
That brings me to this question about using AI, GenAI, and agentic for a regulated industry. How does the regulation come in picture? Is there sort of guidelines that you have to build in your prompts?
The regulators are also gradually coming up with guidelines on AI usage in the company. So financial services has always been using AI. There have always been
underwriting has been with some ML.
Yeah. So either underwriting all of it, or at least augmenting the underwriters with ML intelligence. So that's always been there. But GenAI is upping the game. There's a whole lot more like let's say telesales you can do using GenAI. So there are guidelines coming out, but let's say essentially it's about fairness and transparency, right? Can you ensure that the models you have don't have any kind of inherent biases about a certain gender, about a certain race, about a certain demographic of people, and that's your responsibility. So while there will be, of course, the push from the regulator side, but I think they're all in the genuine interest of the customers. So if as a company you have no reason to say that those things are not important to us, they are, and they have always been, even before regulations came out. So we should not have any biases. We should not have anything unfair being done. So let's say you could build an AI experience, where the customer is interacting with you and they don't even know that they are interacting with AI, and something goes wrong and they feel that the company has not dealt with them fairly. Versus making the choice that at the start of our conversation, we will declare that this is AI talking to you. And if something goes wrong, they can escalate, or we will detect ourselves, and, a human will follow it up. So choices like that. And of course, there's all the work that we do around explainability. So if somebody challenges us on why a certain decision was taken, we can explain that. And these are the kind of things which are like very obvious but very important. And so regulations are mostly emphasizing these type of points, and we'll always ensure that we are ahead of regulation in matters like
Makes
this.
sense. Makes sense.
Hmm.
Ollie, I have some questions about your founder journey. Which startup, let me say, tell me about some of your startups and which one was closest to you? And by that, I mean, which one would you revive if you had the opportunity to revive one?
Well, okay. So the closest to me is still the current one. Like this startup has grown the most, and it's been a very satisfying journey. It's been a very challenging journey. It's pushed me and my teams to a lot of limits that that we didn't know we could go that far, and therefore this still is the closest. But let's say the revive point, if there were ideas that that we evaluated that did not work out then. One of those was this thing about biometrics mobile payment. So this was 2006-07. Uh, and at that time, there was just one phone which had a fingerprint sensor. The bet at that time was that, just the way camera phones became all pervasive between 1998 and 2007. 1998, there was just one phone with a camera, and by 2007, every phone had a camera. So the bet was that it's a matter of time before all phones will have biometrics. So why should we not have a payment network which sits parallel to Visa, MasterCard, relies on the globally connected mobile networks, and therefore relies on their security, and top it up with biometrics of the user, and therefore create another way of doing payments. So that startup was a pretty cool idea, and on hindsight, we of course, that startup had one of those funding problems. The idea was a little ahead of its time. I would say like 2 years ahead of its, just 2 years. The belief was not wrong. The bet was not wrong. It did play out that way. Today, all devices have biometrics, and it really played out beautifully that way. But if we had just like the funding to stay alive for 2 more years, we would have seen that idea become much bigger than many of the wallets and all that came into life well after that. So yeah, if I could get a second chance at doing that, I would love to build that. Yeah.
Very nice. No, there are many ideas that were just a little bit too early, and then you hit, and some people just hit the right timing.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get back to your ambidextrous leadership. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And one of the points you mentioned was building for present versus innovating for future.
Yeah.
How do you strike that balance? Like, is there a framework like BTOR there?
The philosophy there is quite simple. So if you're doing something where you're unsure about customer acceptance, where you're unsure whether this will be revenue generating in the end, whether there'll be a product market fit or not, they're just built for today. Don't worry about tomorrow, right? Don't worry whether this will scale, whether this will grow on or not. Find the quickest, dirtiest way to test it out, whether customers are willing to use your product and pay for it or not. And when there are scenarios where you're past that phase, where you know that this stuff works and there is a product market fit, and now you need to make sure you have something that can work forever, then build it the right way. Then take that pause, and that time it may be a little more than the little bit of pause we talked about earlier, but then you design it well and build it for very, very long after that. Yeah.
All right. This early stage ideas that may or may not succeed.
Yeah.
How do you see this whole experimentation and failure in your teams? What kind of culture have you tried to build?
We've tried to build is one where engineers can freely make choices, freely make mistakes, but there are certain let's say tenets we have defined. So there's 4 large tenets of the culture over there. Let me quickly cover that. First one is delivering results. So no matter what you're doing, how you're doing things, ultimately stuff that's your responsibility, you have to deliver results. The second part is about engineering excellence. That's about how you deliver those results. Have you taken care of the right design, delivered on time, taken care of quality aspects, or have you just like dumped something over there? Conscious choices are okay, but overall engineering excellence needs to be demonstrated. Then there's operational excellence. So no matter how well you do things before launch, stuff goes wrong after launching, and so do you take care of them quickly, and do you learn from the mistakes? Do you write RCAs, or do you keep repeating the mistakes over and over again? Mm-hmm. So that's operational excellence. And fourth one is just about earning trust of the stakeholders you work with. Yeah. Part of a large enterprise, and so keeping your promises allows you to earn trust. Communication allows you to earn trust even when you're off track in your plans and all that. So those are like 4 large tenets. Let's say we encourage people to stay as close as possible to those tenets. But within that, let's say engineering excellence, what choices you make, on design, what choices you make on architecture. We don't have a top-down type culture. We encourage people to take their mistakes, and we tell them it's okay. You will get some things wrong, and therefore don't hesitate in trying out like new ways of doing things. So let's say within innovation, there's new things and there's new ways of doing existing things. So as an example, we do a whole lot of name matching, right? So names, South Indian names and many more Indian names like that, you'll find the names are different in PAN card versus Aadhaar, abbreviations, sometimes first word, sometimes second word, sometimes some combination of those two. And so when we find mismatches in names, it's not easy to approve those loans, especially when you're trying to take machine decisions. So those need to go through high levels of scrutiny and all that. So when you need to do a high confidence name match, there are usual similarities based algorithms. One engineer one day came up with an idea of, let's do a phonetic name match. The names may be spelled a little differently, but they, if you were to do a phonetic match, they may pronounce the same, and therefore you might get a different match. So stuff like that, we there's all the space, available for the engineers to surface these areas, get alignment with the larger org, and once that's there, then go ahead and implement without worrying about, what happens if there is failure. So when things don't work out, all we ask for is just write an RCA, just write a doc saying, this happened, this is what happened, this is what we learned, and these are the action items for the future to not repeat those mistakes. That's pretty much it. Then the part about not doing things the same way, there a guardrail, or let's say a marker that I have in the mind, and I share this with the team. If you're doing something today the same way you were doing a year back, right, then you're stagnating and you want to change that. And so this drives in the spirit of continuous improvement. So, like somebody can say a release pipeline is what it is. It's built once. Like, how can you ever innovate on that? Or let's say cloud cost optimization. Once you've set up the FinOps practice, it's pretty much set up, and you just have to monitor that and take actions. But you can keep getting better.
That's not true. Yeah, you can continuously improve.
Exactly. And so you can continuously improve in like all aspects. So I've got in my larger tech responsibilities, I've got people who manage the IT infrastructure at 500 plus branches. And so when we talk about these spirits of continuous improvement, how can you improve the the internet experience that people have across 500 branches? Yeah. And then we started one day talking about Wi-Fi metrics. We've got those centrally controlled Wi-Fi routers over there. There must be some metrics which tell us how good the experience is, how much the drop is, how much the utilization is and all that. And suddenly, you start looking at the data and you say, oh, wow, we knew all this. We could have seen this earlier and proactively figured out where there is a bad experience versus a good experience. So this thing about, is, 1 year type time frame, are we doing things today the way we were doing it a year back? If yes, there is a need for change over there. Proactively keep looking out for those changes, proactively keep making the changes. A lot you will get wrong, that's okay, but the few that you will get right, can make it big for the company and for your careers as well. So that's the message to the teams. I hope they listen to this and remind themselves that I say this all the time.
Spirit of reiterating.
Spirit of reiterating, yes. That's what it is.
Okay. We've discussed work enough. Let me take a small detour. Yeah. How do you decompress when you are not working on your work? It's difficult to say when you're not at work, right? I mean, because you're working even at home.
That may not be true today. The family needs are different. And so, but so your question is carrying with it an assumption that there are times we get compressed, and so you need to decompress.
Oh yeah.
The best thing to do is to work in a manner where you experience the flow. There's the psychological thing. So you're so deeply engrossed in your work, you are liking whatever you're doing so much that you lose track of time. You don't have any stress. You're just saying, I need to solve this, and I need to solve it for good. So I've found for myself that on those lucky days when I'm experiencing the flow, I never ever feel stressed. I never ever feel compressed. And so that's one thing that I talk about often. That how can you tweak your work? What kind of assignments you're looking at, or how you're thinking about your assignments, so that you can experience more and more of the flow, as opposed to feeling the burden of assignments and deliveries, and just doing it for somebody else. So let's say you experience that, but still there'll be times when stuff will happen that will stress you out or compress you. So compartmentalize that. Don't let it become your whole life. Like one stress in one part of your work, stress in one part of your deliverable, or stress in all of your work is still just one part of your life. So make your compartment carrying your problems very, very small compared to your larger life. So go back and look at what are other things you can do in your work and in your personal life as well. So for me, when those times happen, I'm mostly with friends and family, movies, books. I love to play poker. When I get good company, I play poker a whole lot. It does help me relax. And when I'm able to take vacations, those vacations are the most relaxing actually for me.
Okay. You've done a bunch of startups. We discussed midlife. You joined as founding CTO, Amazon, Nokia, Piramal. Well, we have discussed the difference in your sort of life and working style. How do you see the difference in life of a staff engineer for these different companies?
Yeah. So let's say all engineers, right? Like different companies have different levels. So in the larger tech companies like Amazon, compared to the startup world like midlife uh, or Piramal Finance, the engineers are writing way more code. They're just like executing that much more day-to-day work, in the startup world. Okay. Versus in larger companies, it's a whole lot about, there's tons of existing assets out there, and discovering those, figuring which ones are best for my needs, talking to those relevant teams that own those assets, and getting their alignment to extend their assets to your use cases so you can stitch those up. And then there are of course like deep tech works like in Amazon, all the, let's say, the AWS stuff, all the Alexa stuff, those are way beyond building applications. So in the startup world, we're building a whole lot more on the application layer, but in those tech companies, you're building a whole lot more on the infrastructure level, things that make life easier for the other developers and other teams. So the pace of execution is much more in the startup world, but the depth of work for people who like to solve like deep problems, it won't be uncommon, for example, to walk into a discussion room in a Amazon type setup and hear engineers evaluating breadth first or depth first search options. But those kind of conversations may not be as common in the world where we're building applications and forms and journeys which users need to go through. So that's one difference. And then at the senior levels, let's say the principals in these large tech companies, they're gods in my opinion. I am in awe about them. The depth to which they have analyzed things, the depth at which they operate, is probably like the most possible. They have such a like, again, I'm using the word depth repetitively, but that view of whatever area that they're owning, conversation with them about a trivial topic like infinite scroll can go into a few hours. Like what's the right way to implement infinite scroll, with the engineer, with the principal over there, can go into a few hours, because there's so many nuances over there that they've understood over time and handle those. So that kind of like depth, I think, is not very common in the startup world. And I think uh, in the startup world, I think the opportunities to spend your time learning those kind of things and applying those kind of things is also not as much. I would say
Makes sense.
that's one key difference. Yeah.
Yeah. How does that affect your promotion philosophy? Like, and how much do you sort of still get inspired by your 2 stints at Amazon?
See, Amazon had one very lovely thing in their promotion criteria, which was their job leveling guidelines were objective. So it wasn't left to somebody's discretion that you're ready for the next level or not. But they had this codified job leveling guidelines. So if you're an SD 1 versus 2 versus 3 versus 4 and beyond, there was an internal document which very, very clearly states that this is what a 1 level does and this is what a 2 level does, and so on. So that philosophy of having codified guidelines, differentiating the characteristics of one level from the next, was a great one, and I've carried that forward in my life. But the specifics of what those are then again like tuned to my business, my context. Saying that somebody would be like a deep expert in infinite scroll and then you can get to a principal level would not be practical in a setup like ours. And so there are different criteria that are defined, but the criteria are defined and they're very objective. And then when so that's the philosophy there is essentially that are you performing at a level where you're already demonstrating the characteristics of the next, and then do you actually want to go to the next level? That's another important thing that many people don't want to go to the next level because of additional responsibilities that it brings in. Somebody may be very happy being at an IC level, not wanting to grow into a manager role, or somebody may be quite happy being in a manager role with 20 people, not wanting to grow to a senior manager with 50 people reporting because it's additional responsibility. So do you really want to grow? And if yes, are you demonstrating more or less the capabilities, the skill sets needed for the next level? Some, of course, will be your areas of growth, and you will have all the room to learn those even after your promotion. But broadly, like, you need to be there operating at the next level against the codified guidelines.
Yeah. So we discussed your promotion philosophy. What does your hiring and retention philosophy look like?
Hire the best that you can afford, and that's the like through COVID.
Oh, isn't that difficult? Hire the best you can afford. Most people.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's it was the hardest in that COVID time, but things have normalized since then. So, so campus hiring, for example, we now get day zero slots. So we just impractical in the initial days, we get day zero slots, and our name is there on campuses. We are able to offer competitive salaries, and then lateral hiring. Again, we won't claim to be the best paymasters over there, but what we do claim is that there's real work. You come in here and there's like real output that you can create. There's real code you can write and real problems you can solve. So I've had people a lot more in the early days than now, who, let's say, are evaluating a offer between your past company, a Hotstar, and ours, and wondering.
It's also my current company, but
oh yeah, it's circled around. And and I'll tell them, like, how do you like to learn? Do you like to learn by doing things, being very hands-on, or do you like to learn an environment where a whole lot is already set up, and so things are operating at a mature level? You can see what is that mature level like, and then you can build on top of that. And people make like both of these choices, but I help them see that in a setup like ours, you will learn a lot more by doing. You'll learn a lot more by being hands-on, as opposed to expecting a mature setup to exist. But other companies would give the other options. So depending on how you like to learn, you make these choices. And I'm glad we were able to have those open conversations, because the people who joined us after making those choices, they ended up staying for long. They actually saw that thing. And the people who ended up not joining us ended up being friends for long because they got the right advice. So that's been on the hiring front. So always try to hire like best, but the affordability part has been a will always be a constraint.
Yeah,
And
I should intervene and say there's a lot that you build when you join Hotstar too.
Well, okay, that's that's the other thing. Like does the candidate coming in at a SD1 level have access to the CTO before he or she can make their joining decision? So they've always
they do.
they've always had access to me. There've been people who have grilled me for 6 to 8 hours before taking a decision to join the company, and I've promised availability, and I've ensured that that's the case. Helping people make the right joining decisions is important. Those who make well thought through decisions stay the longest, and it helps them and helps us as well. And similarly for retention, so hopefully the scenario where you have to worry about retaining somebody because they have a job offer has not arrived. Your top performers are taken care of in terms of, again, the quality of work, in terms of their growth charters, in terms of whatever affordability we have and the pay scales and all that. So that's what we try for, that at least our top performers, they continue to have well-defined growth charters. They continue to have work that's high quality. We actually try for that for pretty much everyone in the team, but some people appreciate it, much more than the others. But ultimately, I have to say that it does come down to one of those things, the quality of work and the pay. Different people value different things at different times in their life, and I say there's nothing wrong about it. There have been times when I have valued money, and there's absolutely nothing wrong about it. There have been times when I've valued quality of work, and that's of course a great thing to chase. But different companies will offer different things at different points in your career. You have to make choices based on what aligns with your life stage at that point.
Yeah, that is true. We'll do a quick rapid fire round. And then I have more questions for you after that.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Python or Java?
Mostly Java, but ambidextrous is
you started with J2E. I remember you used to carry this big book.
Yeah. One of the early practitioners of J2E.
Taught beans and whatnot to a full company in your first job. All right. ChatGPT or Gemini? I know you use Claude for Anthropic for code, but
ambidextrous, so Gemini is great for certain things like, document handling and all that, and like with ChatGPT is great for some other things, depending on the use case. But if I were to look at sorry, I'm not answering this in a rapid fire way, but if I were to look at my average usage, it is on a day-to-day basis, 90% is ChatGPT.
All right. Tabs or spaces?
Tabs, easier.
Oh, we had a guest who said, hey, who uses tabs? AWS or GCP?
I can't answer that.
All right, okay. Hire for skill or culture?
Culture. Skill can be taught.
Okay. Tech debt, manage or rewrite?
Eliminate.
Oh, cool. Okay. Build in-house or buy off the shelf? We had a quick discussion on it. You want to quickly take a rapid fire on this?
Ambidextrous again, buy if it suffices, build otherwise.
All right. You can't say ambidextrous for this one, but take a stag. MVP fast or perfect product?
MVP fast, anytime.
All right.
There is no perfect product ever. Yeah.
All right. What is your first programming language, Saurabh?
Oh, have you come across this one called Logo?
Used
to be. So I started programming in class 5. That was 1989. BBC microcomputers were there, and on BBC microcomputers there used to be a language called Logo, which you could use to generate lovely graphics. And I think that's where my love of programming also developed.
Our last guest told us about Logo and how he has discovered that ChatGPT can simulate Logo and he can recreate it.
Yeah. So I started with that, and then it was Basic and GW Basic from there on.
Oh, so Fortran 77 was not your first programming language?
Fortran was not.
It was mine in first year. Right. Okay. Debugging or writing new code? Which one do you want? I spend more time, or which one do you enjoy more?
Writing new code.
All right. You're the first one on this podcast. Biggest tech regret?
Biggest tech regret? because I've been so fond of building and in the startup world, one trend that I thought I completely missed uh, was the trend that came from GPS being available on the mobile phone. So all the businesses that got developed around geolocation, uh, I felt like I missed that trend altogether.
I thought we tried the first
Exactly, we
location
tried
service,
location-based
ATI.
services based on what the mobile tower location we would get, and
Yeah.
so child finder and stuff like that. And that's exactly the regret, that when we were in the middle of all of that, we still didn't see the step jump that is happening because of smartphones giving you GPS that allowed for a completely uh, different set of applications. And I feel like had we seen that, we could have had another great startup.
The GPSs were this big when we were doing mobile. I carried one on my bag.
Yeah.
And I think it was largely chips that became very, very quick.
Exactly. And
very,
once
very
it came
small.
embedded in the phone, you
Yeah.
should have seen that's actually a material shift that's happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Most overhyped tech trend.
AI?
What, really? It's a true hype.
Yeah, I think in today's world it is quite hyped, and it takes a lot of hard work to figure out what part of AI is really useful
that is
and
true.
how to make it really useful for you. MIT had a paper a few days back which said 95% of enterprise deployments are failing for different reasons. So many people have come to believe that you use AI and it's done.
Oh, yeah. It's not as magical as it is. Pretty magical, but not.
Yeah, but
can't
it
do
is
everything.
hard work to stitch it together in an
Yeah,
enterprise.
correct.
You say that, okay, I want the ability for somebody to come in and chat with all the enterprise data, and there is MCP. So you just have to MCP enable all the systems and try to trivialize all of that. But then it is hard work to
The
do all,
guardrails are very hard too.
exactly, all the access control, all the security governance. Who has access to what data, and then the very importantly, the stuff that we talked about earlier, the post-launch monitoring. So you've built a chat application which can chat with your data. How good is it? Have you been able to figure out metrics that you will monitor post-launch to tell you whether the thing is working or not? And I don't think there are clear answers to that just yet, and those are open areas. So for many people, AI, they're treating this as a magical word, that just get AI to do it. Something is not working, and why can't AI do it? But then my take on that is that's all like way too overhyped. It takes crazy amount of hard work to stitch together AI experiences in an enterprise context.
Okay, we'll go to a last question for you, Saurabh.
Yeah.
What will be your advice for engineers who are thinking of starting up?
Maybe I'll just say two dimensions, important ones. Start with why do you want to do a startup? Answering that question about what am I looking at getting out of it for myself. So I've had, for example, people telling me that I don't want the tyranny of a boss, and so I want to be my own boss, and so I want to do a startup. But then you realize as soon as you've raised external funding that you're accountable to the people whose money you have taken, and even if you don't take external money, you have customers, and you're accountable for your deliveries to your customers. So you're always accountable to someone.
You're responsible for your team's career suddenly.
And that too, right? And the stability of their financial payments and all of that. It's a whole lot of responsibility. So so if you think about, it's going to give you total freedom, there are like details over there, and you should figure that out. If you say I'll do it for money, then you need to be clear about that you need to have an exit plan. When you're raising funds from investors, you need to be clear to them that I have a 2-year, 5-year, or 7-year type horizon in which time frame I would like to get out of this. So don't question me at that time about why I'm selling my stake, because the moment you start talking about selling your stake, they would say, do you no longer believe in your company? And that becomes a hard conversation. Then there's this thing about, do you really want to become self-employed, or do you want to have the freedom of your time? So self-employed, think of it like that, as it's your company, but it's running well only as long as you're giving your personal time to it. Like a doctor's shop. the doctor is not there, it's not running. Or do you want to create something where there's leverage on your time, you get much higher returns than what your personal time would have created. And so eventually you're chasing freedom of time. So are you chasing like freedom of money, freedom of accountabilities, freedom of time? What is it that you're doing it for? Be very clear about that, especially with your co-founders. They may be in for different things. Like one person may be doing it for money, and another person may be doing it for time freedom. Another one may be doing it just for passion. And these end up being like large fundamental conflicts. When you have bad days, and the co-founders are chasing different goals in their lives, that's when companies start to break apart. So be very clear about why you're doing a startup. What do you want in the end for yourself? The second advice, is it might end up being a little controversial, but let me say that anyway. Is think big. So let's say. So I'll explain why I think it might be controversial, because of details that I'm going to add now. So most of us, like I grew up in a very average middle class background, and let's safely assume that many of the listeners of this podcast would be similar backgrounds. So for most of us, like $1 crore or $1 million would have been a lot of money, right? And so if you say that I'm going to bet my life on doing a startup to earn $1 million of money, I'm going to make the assertion that that's thinking like small, like really, really small. You have to think big, much, much bigger than that. So how much bigger? Now, it's of course for you to figure out, but here's the controversial part. My assessment is that if you manage your career decently well, if you have a good relationship with money, and if you have a supporting partner, so these three things: you manage your career decently well, you have a good relation with money, and you have a supporting partner, by the end of your working life, not your debt, but your working life, you would easily end up with 10 to 20 million of net worth. Very easily. Very, very easily. And for those who do better, you could possibly in the 50 million. This is like, I'm talking routine jobs, with those three things falling in place. So if a normal career can give you 10, 20, $50 million, then you say, okay, for me, think big needs to be something much bigger than that, right? So now how much bigger, whether you want to stop at 100 or 500, a billion, 10 billion, but that's the order of magnitude. Don't settle for a few crores to a few million. I think that was a mistake I did, when I was thinking of my first startup just after IIT, which was chasing the rush to build, seeing can I build, can I sell, can I build a company and all that. That we lost sight of this factor, like how big would it be if all of this were to work out. And if you do that analysis and you realize that in the best case, if all of this were to work out, it's a few million here and there, is it big enough for you is a question you should answer. But that'll be my net thing, that think really, really big. Don't have any barriers in your mind. There is no limit to how much a passionate person can achieve in life. There's absolutely no limit. So yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Super. Thank you so much, Saurabh. I have always enjoyed listening to you, but I'm so glad because of Scalar, others will get to hear how you think about life. Thank you again for coming to the talk.
Thank you, Jeet. And thanks again to the lovely Scalar team for organizing this. I love this conversation. Thank you so much.